So I was so tired 5 minutes ago that I was trying to plug my headphones into the USB bottom of the microphone and plug the USB cord into where the headphones go.
Grandma.
And that's why we're late. Hi, I'm Spike.
We're not late.
I'm
We're like
Kel,
2 hours
I'm
early because of
dying.
me. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I killed Kel.
You and Amanda
No, my
says-
sinuses killed me. They
Yeah.
betrayed me.
Hello, everyone. Amanda, introduce yourself.
Oh, I was waiting for Kel. I'm Amanda. We have a guest.
We have a guest. Our guest today, everyone, to the 3 people who are currently watching, because we're 2 hours
Yeah!
early, you're in for
Yeah.
a fucking treat.
It's by
because
20
we
people
have-
are watching.
Oh, it just says 3 in the corner. But we have a fucking giant of YouTube here with us today. None other than that fucking liege of bread tube himself, Harry HBOMBERGUY Brewis. Thank you for joining us, Harry.
Thank you so much for doing this a lot earlier when I realized it would be 2 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah, in case you couldn't tell by his exotic American brain intoxicating accent, Harry lives in a different time zone. So certain secessions, whatever, acceptances had to be made. So that's why we're early. We are surprised early this time.
It was in my rider.
Yeah, exactly, along with the no brown M&Ms. But yeah, so that's why we're early.
I love the no brown M&M's story.
Yes,
Yeah.
because it's an actual good story. It's an actual
Yeah.
reasonable thing.
I love
Like,
hearing
what
it and people be like, "Do you know why they do that? Do you know
Yeah.
the story?" About what-" Yeah,
Yeah,
I do. We
it's
all do. We all know the story.
It's the perfect, like, kind of smarty pants Poindextery opener at like the cocktail party, you know?
Well,
yeah.
I like that, like, for a while, half the people who knew the story knew it as an example of people being prima donnas.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like, no, there was a reason to it.
Yeah.
There's a great reason. Brown M&Ms are terrible.
Yeah, there's that.
They're the
there's
worst
that.
flavor.
Are they even a flavor?
They
Yeah.
all, no.
M&Ms have flavors.
No.
You're
No,
a
they don't.
fucking liar. No, they don't.
Well, do they not have flavors in the US? Are they all just chocolate?
Oh my god. Anyway, Harry's a fucking liar. M&Ms don't have flavors. Like Skittles, you can have that one. Although maybe I'm wrong, because when last time I was in the UK, well, no. Oh god, this makes me sound so fucking up my own ass. But like, no, I think it was the time before last I was in London. You see, I've just been to London so frequently I lose track. I discovered
God, I'm gonna
blackcurrant
wedge you.
candy. I know, right? I fucking deserve it. I discovered blackcurrant candies. And now blackcurrant is my favorite flavor of candy because we don't have that in the US. Blackcurrant isn't a thing here. All of our dark purple candy is grape and it's shit.
Oh, I love blackcurrant. It's a great flavor. I
It's
hate
the
the actual taste of blackcurrant. Same with like strawberry, where like strawberry flavored milkshakes are great, but I couldn't eat a strawberry to save my life.
Yeah, strawberries are. I'm just really underwhelmed by strawberries. You just kind of get caught up in the hype, and then you go to the grocery store and you see some. You're like,
Strawberry.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for it because everything makes strawberries look so good, and then you bite into one, you're like, oh,
I
I'm
worked on a
partial
strawberry
to
farm for a while.
blueberries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
you did?
Yeah, so well, just like as a work experience thing. So they didn't pay me.
Oh.
But so like I didn't like strawberries when I started, and like I went through a whole arc of getting into eating them because I could eat them for free all day, and then getting sick of them again. So
So are the strawberries in the UK all like weird and misshapen and bloated like they are here?
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, our climate is not made for strawberries, but we grow them anyway. So
Yes.
yeah.
I'm partial to blueberries.
Blueberries don't taste like
I
nothing.
like that blueberries.
That's a lie,
want to
Spike.
grow in.
No, they don't.
I like that blueberries want to grow in shitty ground. Apparently, it took a long time to like domesticate them because farmers were like over fertilizing them and giving them nicer soil than they like, and they would be like, "Fuck you."
You know what I'd actually really like? I would like, what do they call it? Gros Michel. I want a Gros Michel banana. I want one of those bananas that they don't sell like on an industrial agricultural scale anymore because they got wiped out by some horrible disease. And now all the people farming it, they're super isolated and they're like $90 a bunch. Like one of these days when I've got too much fucking loot, I'm just going to mail order a bunch of those original bananas that the banana flavor and everything is based on. That
I
no
thought
one
you
can actually
can't.
buy.
I thought that was the
they're still there.
Cavendish.
The Cavendish is the one that we all eat now.
Wait, I thought
the
the one that
Gros
the
Michel.
flavor. I thought the one that the flavoring based on was based on is gone.
it's gone on an industrial level. It's still around.
I
No,
didn't know
seriously,
that.
just search Gros Michel banana. They grow
I'll
them in
take your
Florida.
word on it. I don't want to open a window.
And that means what? Big Mike. They're called Big Mike bananas. or something like that. I want a Big Mike banana.
I hate bananas. I can't eat them.
What the
Yeah,
the
I
matter with you?
also don't like bananas.
Absolutely
I don't
What's the
like
matter
the
with the both
texture
of
of
you?
bananas.
Bananas are the
What's
only
the both
fruit
of
I
you?
will eat.
You're both the worst. See, I'm about the mango.
Yeah.
Other than that.
What the fuck? Long story short, I was watching Spaceballs with my dad when I was about 6, and I
This is
went
the best
like
conversation.
my dad was divorced. He lived on his own. He didn't take great care of himself at the time. So I went to get pizza. There was a pizza on the side. I was like, oh, there's a pizza here. I hadn't known that the pizza was many, many days old.
Oh
So-
no.
God!
I pull a chunk of it off, and like it comes off like it it rips off like it's attached with Velcro.
Oh,
I take a bite, and in the split second, right before I instantly vomit, it tasted exactly like banana. So I
Oh
cannot
my
eat banana ever again.
Oh, it was like decaying in the box. Oh God! Oh, believe it or not, that's kind of fucking relatable. Because when I was in, oh God, this makes me sound like a monstrous asshole. Kickstarter invited me to New York for a week, like years and years ago, before they decided they wanted to throw in with the fucking blockchain shells. And I was there for a whole week. And I decided I was just going to order a pizza to my hotel room. And I let the pizza stay out for, I swear, 2 days maximum. And I was about to pack up and get ready to head to the airport to go home. And I saw the pizza and I was like, it'd be a shame to just not eat it. And I opened the box and I took one of 2 slices maybe left. And I took a bite and I could see I was making eye contact with just the very tiniest beginnings of like that white fuzz that grows on food. Like just a smattering, a hint, a
And then
suggestion.
You were like, nope.
Yeah, and I was all like, oh. And while the pizza tasted fine, that was enough to make me nauseous. Just seeing the white fuzz growing on the pizza.
See,
That's
I
not
have an
really-
experience like that, which is why I can't drink from anything that has a built-in straw.
Oh no!
Ooh.
Oh fuck!
Ooh,
Oh God!
no.
Where's this
Yeah.
going?
When I was a kid, the cereal bowls with the built-in milk drinking straws were very popular.
Oh no!
They were not, our household did not thoroughly wash them, and one day I drank something that traumatized me, and I don't know what it was. I just know it was horrid in every sensory experience, and now if anything has a built-in straw, like a coffee cup that has like built-in straw you can't remove, I'm like, nope.
No, oh fuck. Yeah, back when everybody was really worried about straws, I decided to buy some permanent straws so I'd stop getting any disposable straws. And we opted for metal straws, and they came with a little, a pipe cleaner on a wire thing. And I am very fucking diligent about that, just because the idea of one day sticking it in a soda without really thinking and taking a sip and meeting resistance, and then suddenly the resistance breaks and something, I don't know what, hits the back of my throat. Like that's the kind of that's wake up screaming shit. Like I don't want that ever to happen to me.
And I don't need to retell the story about why I can't drink from lukewarm
Yes!
soda cans.
Oh, God, Amanda, you have all the worst
Oh.
fucking experiences. God.
And you've told that story multiple times.
Yes.
It's worse
I'm
every
saying
time.
no.
It's fucking
I'm not
worse
saying I'm
every
going to say
time.
it again. I'm saying I don't have to explain.
Oh my fucking God. By the way, Harry, why are you a cat in a motorboard?
Not a cat. How dare you?
No, it's a
you're not a
ferret. It's a ferret. No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to offend.
It's a
I thought
ferret.
you-
Yeah.
I
At some
thought you were
point,
good.
the council assigned me a persona, and
Yes.
there's a ferret.
It's a
Everyone
ferret in a
needs one.
motorboard. That's the important part.
And it has a motorboard because it's like from
Educated
a bit
ferret.
where I'm in a classroom teaching things.
Yeah.
I have like a
It's from the vaccine video.
yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
I have a bit where an animator did me as a ferret for another thing where I explain an animation principle, and then I have not actually used that clip for 2.5, 3 years. So I can't wait to show that off.
It's marinating. It'll be ready. It'll be waiting.
Thank you, Sketch.
So-
I'm glad you like the ferret.
So yesterday,
Ah.
I told Harry like, oh, we'll just talk about whatever on stream.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'll probably get you and Amanda to talk about Sonic. So now I'm following through
No!
on that.
Yeah.
Those
Well,
days are
before-
behind me. I
What happened to
refuse.
Sonic?
before we talk about
I mean,
Sonic,
I am making a
You okay?
YouTube video about how I came to the realization I've been liking Sonic incorrectly for 15 years.
it's okay to
Haven't
like
we
Sonic.
all?
Yeah.
Isn't it incorrect to like Sonic at this point?
Yes.
Does anyone here watch Jello Apocalypse?
I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
the freeze, the cold front.
Yeah.
But he did this video called "This Is Basically" about Sonic, and it's been oh god, it's so fucking good. It's so good. Talking about how basically Sonic embraced the cringe, and that was like a big part of the comeback, where the whole IP began like making fun of itself on Twitter, and that kind of enamored people.
I
to
wish it would
Yeah.
embrace. Oh, never mind. No, I'll go on a fucking no.
Yeah.
Is this
my
about Sonic's
favorite-
real human girlfriend?
That's a different subject. That's just a thing. That's a side fucking thing.
My favorite Sonic thing is I got to see the do's and don'ts for Sonic Licenser. And it's made entirely out of Sonic fan art that they found online.
Just arrows going no.
Don't do
No,
this.
no.
Yeah, basically like
Sonic does
so
not
it's
have
like
hurt
no
nipples.
politics, and then there's a picture of Sonic going thanks Obama,
Aw.
and then there's one that's like Sonic can't engage in illegal activities, and it's him spray painting "fuck the police" on a wall. And
But Sonic would totally do that.
No,
Yeah.
he wouldn't.
He absolutely would.
No, he works with the police all the time.
Oh god.
I could be spray
no.
painting "Respect the Police" on a wall.
Oh fuck.
Only
no, that's
once was
awful
he
to say.
he was only briefly a criminal, and that was due to a misunderstanding.
I think my favorite Sonic thing is just everything to do with Ken Penders.
Oh my fucking god. Every once in a while you will come across some beautiful, like shiny-eyed babe who has no fucking idea who Ken Penders is. And you just have to like take that moment to relish, like you get to pop that balloon. You get
Yeah.
to yank back that curtain and
I-
expose that person to the latent background radiation of Sonic. That
on
is
New Year's Eve, I went to a New Year's Eve party that was mostly older comic artists,
Mhm.
and I had to explain who Ken Penders was.
Oh my god.
And I was slightly baffled because I'm like, you all are the same age as him. Surely someone here must like
I
have
mean,
met him while he worked at Archie.
it's a little world, and it's not like there was like
Yeah.
an office everyone went to.
But to me though, it's like okay, there's a lot to talk
Excuse
about
me.
with Ken Penders. But speaking from I run a publisher angle,
What?
my absolute favorite fucking Ken Penders thing ever is that he has legal ownership of all the incredibly questionable characters he made for the Sonic universe. And that is literally, in case folks don't know, because of a fucking paperwork error. Basically, like Archie Comics.
I don't
took him
even
to
think it's a
court
paperwork
when-
area. I think it's more they just lost. They just don't have them.
Well, that's the thing. That's up for fucking like debate. What
Yeah.
happened is Archie Comics, when Ken Penders began asserting ownership of like the greater Echidna universe, I don't know exactly what he calls it, but like all the echidnas he made up for Archie Sonic, Archie was like, no, that's work for hire. We own that lock, stock, and barrel. And he was like, no, you don't. They're mine. And then Archie's like, no, we do. We have the contract you signed saying it was work for hire. And Ken goes, I would very much like to see that contract. And they couldn't fucking find it. And depending on who you ask, they lost it, or at some point Ken took it out of their offices, knowing
Or
he
I
was
think
going
the
to do
other
this,
theory is it never existed.
or it never existed. And like because of that, the court's like, okay, you need to prove that he made these work for hire by producing that contract, or else he owns them, because that's how US copyright law works. He automatically gains copyright of them upon creation.
Yeah.
And that's why Ken Penders owns all these echidna characters he made for Archie Sonic, because they couldn't
And
produce proof he doesn't own them.
And that's why IDW Sonic is never gonna have like Sally Acorn or really anything from the Archie comics.
The Penderverse.
Yeah.
Because it might even be like tangentially too close to Ken Penders.
Yeah.
Well, there's also that BioWare Sonic game that like just is that he sued.
You're
Yeah,
kidding.
he like insinuated the general vibe of characters that they added in Dark Chronicles or whatever
Oh my
was similar
God.
enough that it was clearly a knockoff of his characters. Like he
No.
invented the concept of echidnas who exist in secret.
Yeah.
Oh my
He
God.
also was trying to claim that Avengers Endgame was ripping him off because it used the title Endgame.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Because no one's ever used the phrase endgame before.
The thing that is kind of wild about the BioWare game thing, that the Dark Chronicles game, is that Sega and BioWare probably could have won that case. I think they just didn't want to.
Throwaway money is definitely a thing for large corporations. I know for a fact, and this is like some more like who cares bullshit, but I think it's fun. There was a dream. Who's the guy who made fucking the Terminator movies? What's his name?
James Cameron.
James Cameron. Yeah, I should know that. The Avatar guy. Yeah, he says he was really, really sick, and he went to sleep one night, and he had a really bad dream about a skeleton robot on flames. And that, according to James Cameron, is where the visual for the Terminator originally came from. And he's like, oh my God, yeah. And he put together this whole treatment and got to make this movie that featured this imagery from his dream of a flaming robot with a gun, and it was made of metal. It's terrifying. And then, if I'm not mistaken, a sci-fi author kind of saw some parallels. What's his fucking name? He's kind of
Harlan Ellison.
Thank you. See, Harry knows this fucking story. Harlan Ellison saw some parallels between Terminator conceptually and a story he'd written. And he straight up sued, I think it was Warner Brothers, saying, you're ripping me off. That's my idea. And James Cameron was very fucking adamant. Like, no, this is literally based on a dream I had. I've never read that story. It has nothing to do with anything. The resemblance is incredibly surface level. And the studio was just like, we don't fucking care. Here's some go away money, and you get a credit.
Yeah, and that's why at the end of Terminator, it just says, like, we'd like to acknowledge the works of Harlan Ellison. Like, nothing in specific.
And James Cameron, to this fucking day, is mad as hell about that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories like that is so you know the movie Zoolander?
No.
Is apparently has the same plot as a Brent East Ellis book.
Huh, okay.
Except the Brent East Ellis book is serious and Zoolander is a joke. But it is like apparently close enough that when he took them to court, they were like, here's some money, go away. Don't talk about this ever again. Because it's literally about like male models getting brainwashed to be global assassins to uphold capitalism.
Oh, Kristen Cheney is in here. Hi, Kristen. See, it's kind of a weird coincidence because I recently watched a thing that's been kind of like blowing up called Skinamarink, which is a horror film that's you can watch it on YouTube right now. It's free. And it's a horror film from the perspective of small children. And when I was watching it, the whole time I was like, what the fuck? And Kristen comes into this because years and years ago, Iron Circus published a small press anthology called The Sleep of Reason, which was a horror anthology. And Kristen's story in it is about a 5-year-old who gets trapped in the new house her family moves into because, she's a small child and she can't fucking process what's going on and what's happening to her. But her parents lose their facial features and just become like they're staring at blank TVs and they're sitting motionless on the couch and they're not responding to her. And of course, since she's like 5, she doesn't know what to do. So she's just kind of like wandering around the house and eating cereal out of boxes and popping bubble wrap and trying to talk to her mommy and daddy and leading them around by the hand. And it's just, they're not responding and it's terrifying and horrifying. And at some point she ends up like hiding under the bed from them. And I was watching Skinamarink and there are certain parallels and it's like,
that's someone else's story, apparently.
That's not yours? I thought that was yours. Oh shit. Sorry. Never mind. It was 10 years ago.
This is about the kid that brainwashes the lady into taking care of her.
Oh shit. Never mind then. Sorry. I thought it was yours. My bad. It's been a long time. Forgive me.
There is the problem of a lot of stories are based on like literally like dreams or nightmares where there's actually like culturally a lot of we share dreams and nightmares where we are all roughly human, so we all like experience those things. It's like how
like the Benadryl Hat Man.
Yeah, why is Elsa pregnant in all of the weird cartoons? And it's because, like, psychologically, children attach to pregnant characters a lot because, like, it reminds them of when they were young. Because your earliest, most formative memories, if you're like an older sibling, is of your mother being pregnant with the younger sibling.
Yeah.
It's like all that. So like, so when a story is similar, but it's a story they got from a dream, I'm always like, well, maybe it's the same dream, you know?
Yeah.
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 Alan Ellison dreamt of a skull man, and that's it.
I'm actually I have a bunch of fucking YouTube videos I've been slowly working on. I don't know why, because I'm stupid. Anyway, one of them is about like every now and then you'll get someone like, actually pretty frequently, especially if you watch a lot of YouTube video essays, you'll get someone's like, why was this made for kids? Why is this so scary? Was this like meant to be like kids movie and they snuck in the scary stuff for adults? It's like, no, kids love terrifying stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
there was like this bit of this conspiratorial talk about, well, why during the Elsa Gate crap was so much of it like needles and drugs and pregnancy and all this weird sex stuff. And it was like, oh, they're trying to brainwash kids with their fetishes. It's like, no, this is because children are morbid and this is the kind of shit they will Google if their mom's not around.
Yeah, like acting like kids somehow don't love the drama is bizarre. Because I
Yeah.
remember when I was a little kid, and I remember a game I played with my cousins where one of the teddy bears was lying in a hospital bed in a coma. And like my cousin was trying to be the doctor, but we were like small fucking children. So we didn't know how doctors behaved. And like I was trying to be, I don't even know, I think I was like the mother or the sister of the teddy bear that was in the coma, and I was like, when will she get better? And the doctor was like, my cousin, and then was like, no, I am sorry, she will die. Everyone who gets this will die. You have to sit here and watch now. Like, that's how we were playing when we were single digit ages.
And the whole, well, I mean, the whole,
I remember as a kid, like we didn't do anything like that, but it was always like they had to sacrifice someone to some eldritch god.
Yeah.
But yeah,
me and my brothers had the Jurassic Park T-Rex with the split open stomach, so you could put the figures that came with it down its throat, and so it could eat them.
Yeah.
But that was the same, those toys were the same size as little Star Trek figurines that they sold a lot at the dollar store near us. So our tradition was to load up on every time my mom was like, you can get toys at the dollar store, we would load up on the Star Trek ones. And my mom was always confused why we liked the Star Trek toys. But it was because they could fit down the T-Rex's throat and they had articulated arms and legs, so they were floppy. So we just had massive piles of them and we would just feed them to the T-Rex.
That's what me and my brother would do too. We learned that you can fit 12 people in the T-Rex at once. And you can fit 2 raptors in the T-Rex.
Also, that
the
is
raptors
where
were not designed to go in T-Rex, but you could get them in there. You could get 2 in there.
I have a new T-Rex related story because when I went over to my family's for the holidays, we were talking about the T-Rex. And my mom was like, oh yeah, I once lost my credit cards for 2 weeks. And it turns out our littlest brother decided to feed them to the T-Rex. So her credit cards were just in the T-Rex, like in his throat for a little while.
Scott just said, I'm still obsessed with scary stories to tell in the dark. Stephen Gamble's illustrations are such incredible nightmares. Holy shit. When I was really young, everyone here remembers, like everyone who's seen scary stories to tell in the dark.
My eyes are narrowing every time Spike's like, everyone remembers.
No. Do you remember the image of the woman from Scary Stories who had no eyes? She had empty eye sockets and a drooping lip and like scraggly black hair. And she was just facing forward, staring forward.
No.
Oh.
Shut up.
You know I don't know things.
But I remember when I was young, that picture scared me so badly that when I was reading the book, I turned really fast past that page. Like I knew what page it was on because the paper that the books were printed on was not like the highest quality. So if there was a really dark image behind the page that you were currently on, you could kind of see it through. So most of my childhood is remembering that woman's face through the haze of the
Oh,
page on
God.
top of it because I was always making sure to flip past it, and that fucking ruled. I remember they re-released those books recently with much tamer illustrations, and I was all like, "Well, that's a sin against our Lord."
I grew up with this like Nintendo magazine, and there were like commercials in it for like a Resident Evil game, and one of the commercials was really messed up, where you could see a guy's veins and stuff. And I was like, ah. So like, I don't know. I feel like kids love
Yeah.
violence and murder and crime.
Absolutely.
Did y'all have what we called it at my elementary recommended reader program, where you read books for points that you could like spend at the end of the year?
No, but that sounds interesting.
So, okay, in the school district I was in, they had the recommended reader program where books were rated for certain point scores, and you would basically take tests after you read a book to prove that you read it. And I really, really, really wanted to read Goosebumps, but they ranked them by grade, and I was not in the appropriate grade. But there was a thing where you could test into the upper grades if you accumulated enough points on a high enough reading level. So I found the highest leveled pointed books, which in my grade, which were all really, really boring academic shit, and I read it like and tested and scored really high just so I could rank high enough to read Goosebumps. And then I finally got to read Goosebumps, and I scared myself and never read them again.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was like, yeah, finally. And like, oh no, this is why they didn't want me to have this forbidden knowledge.
There was a poem in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark that started, "Don't you laugh when a hearse goes by because you might be the next to die," is how it started off.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember the middle of it, but in the end it says something like, "Pus comes out like whipping cream." And then you spread that on a slice of bread, and that's what you eat when you are dead.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like a real poem. And I remember the opening, and I remember those last two lines because they fucking haunted me in that way, where I would go back and like read it over and over and over, and I accidentally seared it into my memory. Like, Scary Stories to Tell in the fucking Dark. I don't have kids, but if I did, they would absolutely get a copy because that was a fucking banger. That shit is formative.
Oh,
I don't
God.
know, man.
As a kid, I was really into the Darren Shan books, if you've heard of those.
What does he do?
He's an Irish, I think, or possibly Scottish. Oh God, I'm getting mixed up. Just a horror, like the Darren Shan books are all just like one kid who becomes a vampire or whatever. They're like Harry Potter, but actually good, and they tend to skew darker and more like gory, but in a way that's very like funny. And like I remember the first line
where he joins the circus.
Yes, yeah, there was a movie adaptation.
Yes,
of that one.
okay.
Yeah, but in the Demon
I have
Arthur
seen that.
books, which were like written by him as well, but not starring Darren Shan, but written by that was also his name. I don't know, it's weird. But one of the books begins with "My eyes, they stabbed out my eyes" as the opening line. And it's just like, it's incredible. So like, I don't know, that was so good to read as a kid. I hate how now, as I get older, violence is much more shocking to me. Where like. I tried rewatching Devilman Crybaby, which I've seen before, and I had to stop. I was like, I'm having a panic attack. That guy's murdering people.
No, I actually get the same way, to the point like I was watching Attack on Titan, and I'm like, I hit a point where it's like this one too many people got viscerally eaten, and I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
I reached my limit of humans that can die in front of me, even if they are imaginary.
See, that's interesting because one of my favorite, I don't even know if girlfights.org is still up, but what some of my favorite things are, there are still forums online where you can go and, these days, whenever anybody has a fight, someone's there with their phone. And while I used to be limited to MMA stuff and boxing, now I can see fights in the streets. And I fucking love that shit. Like people who come out of the club and they've had a few too many, and they're like, "Let's go, bro. I'm right here, bro. I'm right here." And like 90% of the shit talk, if anyone here ever watches me play Vintage Story on Sunday, when I'm sitting there, like, kick my ass. I thought we were fighting. Let's go. That's where I'm getting it. From watching these people fucking kick each other's at like 3 a.m. in the middle of the street in their fucking prettiest little black sequin mini skirt, having kicked off their 6-inch heels, and they're yanking each other's tracks out of their heads. smear each
Ah.
other's makeup. It's the fucking best.
No.
I love watching people fight. It's
I
the
know
best.
that was one of the things I had to ban you from sharing.
I love watching people fight.
This is illegal.
Um,
Can't do
I
that.
Spike, I used girl fights as reference for Misfits of Avalon because that is great video of people who don't actually know how to fight having fights.
Oh, that's great.
There's a lot of bear hugging on the ground and just like hitting people in their head while you've got like a hank of their hair in your other hand.
Because if you watch like MMA or any professional sport fight,
Yeah.
those people know how to fight.
Yeah.
But the beauty of girlfights.com is these are randos on the street who are just going at each other and don't know what to do. So there is a scene in the last volume of Misfits of Avalon that is one of the girls just beating the shit out of the other girl. And like that, I use girlfights.com a lot for that reference.
That's
Because
incredible.
it's stuff like while trying to block or push the person away, like your finger accidentally goes in their nose, or like stuff like that is unintentional that you never see in a movie because it does not look nice.
No. Movie fights are fake ass fights, everybody. If you
No,
are a
really?
person who is what I mean by fake ass
I
is
know,
like,
I'm being a turd.
Yeah.
But like if you are a person who is drawing comics or you are making films and you're like, I have to do this fight scene, do not reference films.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this much, years and years ago, before I was like a regular viewer of girl fight type shit, was I couldn't like understand. I knew factually you could punch a person once and they could die, but I didn't understand how that would work. And then one day I saw a video and it was being shot from someone's like bedroom window down in the middle of the street, and
Keep
it
the
was
details
just like
light.
this long dirt road behind their house, and there are these two men, and one of them was very large and just like, wide and tall, and he kept like walking up and puffing his chest out at like this much smaller guy who kept taking a step back, taking a step back, taking a step back. And like it was the middle of the day, these guys were in t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops, nobody was here for a fight, and the guy was really loud and shouting, the big guy was loud and shouting. I couldn't understand what he was saying because it wasn't English. And then the small guy, who clearly did have some kind of training, just pulled his arm back and just like bam, right on top of the bridge of the nose, right between the eyes, as they say. And the guy just like, when they shout timber in the forest and the tree goes over, it's like, guy did that. And then he did the most fascinating thing. That's the first time I've ever seen anyone do this. His arms go really straight and bent at the wrists and ball into fists.
Oh, there's a name for that. It's awful.
Yeah, he points his toes down like he's about to jump, and his head and arms and legs just start twitching violently.
I said keep the details light.
And then the small guy just walked away, and everyone just kind of stopped in the street to go, "Oh, I've never." I
forget the name of that physical reaction, but that's repeatable and it's terrible.
Yeah, I can see how one punch can kill a person if it can do that.
Yeah,
so
I think
you say don't reference movies, but like I think that depends entirely on the type of fight, because sometimes the fight is not meant to just be a fight. It needs to like be a choreographed scene that looks nice, and like so in your comic, if you're trying to replicate like a fight that looks pretty, look at movies, because that's where all the pretty looking fights are.
I mean, you're gonna have Old Boy, and then you're gonna have like some
everything's
Hollywood
different.
bullshit. So yeah,
have the Hollywood remake of Old Boy.
Well, no, because there's also like, because if you think of something like a kung fu movie, like a Bruce Lee movie or whatever, there's like a choreography and a dance to it, like that goes with the fighting.
Yeah.
I know, like, I'm doing fight scenes in Starry Night right now, and I'm referencing different stuff, and a lot of it is movies because these do actually these do need to like be good panels at the end of the day. Like it's more not even readable, but just aid the flow. Like there's a kick I'm doing that's actually not very realistic, but it makes for a really good panel transition. So I'm kind of ignoring that.
Yeah.
I think the prominence of stuff like girl fights really brings light to the American education system and how how few women in our modern society know how to do a suplex.
Yeah.
It's a shame. It's a waste. You
I
know?
did realize there was a kick I was trying to draw, and I realized I cannot find a reference for a human doing this kick, and I realized, oh my god, this is a kick that only exists in video games. I'm trying to make someone do video game kicks. Yeah. What the hell?
There's no live action reference for the cannon spike. I don't know how to do the...
Although, yeah, I have to say, it's like, from what I have learned from girl fights, I've learned a lot from girl fights.
So much.
It's like, in the future, if I'm ever in that situation, let's hope I'm not. I'm fucking old at this point. I don't need to be fucking fighting in the street like that. But I do know, it seems like the most effective thing is strike first, go for the hair, get them on the ground, and then just keep walking backwards and punching them in the face while you've got a hold on their hair. Most people's hands will automatically shoot to the hand in their hair and not try to defend their face. And most people don't want the fight to keep going after they've been punched in the nose twice.
I'm writing this down.
My dad didn't teach me a lot of good things, but he taught me you hit people low.
Yeah, absolutely. And while you're dragging them backwards and punching them in the face, that's when you scream, "Kick my ass! Kick my ass!" I thought you were gonna kick my ass. Kick my fucking ass.
Y'all made me think of, again, another opportunity to praise Chainsaw Man. Look, I will take any opportunity.
Obviously.
Because we were talking earlier about how like shows where lots of shows in media where lots of people die and how it really puts me off. And one of the reasons is because like it gets me in this existential, wow, people just die and there's nothing to do about it. Your life is meaningless, blah, blah, blah. I hate it, basically. It just makes me feel sad when lots of like, even especially when they're like nameless background characters, like, oh, they're just there to die. That's all they're there for. In the Chainsaw Man comic, when they did a big mass killing of tons of people, what they did, if you've never read it, it's a multi-page spread of destruction and lists of names and ages of everyone who died.
Wow.
And it was just it gave me the same existential thing, but it felt like it had more meaning, if that makes sense. Like, yes, a lot of people died, but they were people, if that makes sense. And that was like way more impactful than showing lots of gore on screen, I think. Well, on screen, it was on paper. I don't know if where that scene is exactly.
I clearly need to actually either watch or read Chainsaw Man before you or Kel destroy it for me.
No, here's the thing. That's not a spoiler. Don't worry. That is not a spoiler. In fact, I think it's a flashback. So, like, don't worry.
It's already happened. It's fine.
But did you get to the ball kicking scene?
I haven't gotten to anything in Chainsaw Man.
Oh, okay. There's a very good scene that's just them kicking a guy in the balls.
I have a really awful confession. Ooh, bless you. I have a really awful confession to make, which is people like Kel and Amanda can come up to me and be like, there's this show, it's perfect for you. We've known you for 20 years, so we know you'll like this. It's awesome, it's great, you should watch it. And I will say, you know what, I will watch it, and then it'll take me literal fucking years. But if I see someone go, there is this garbage trash ass show, it is the worst thing I've ever seen, I'm watching it that day. And I am currently watching I don't even want to like say the name, I don't want to get in trouble because I know animation is a multi-person discipline and everyone is trying their hardest and blah blah blah, but it's an animated show on Netflix which is like notoriously awful, and I've been watching it simply because someone on YouTube, of course, made like a fucking half-hour long video about how much they hate it. And I was like, really?
I'm gonna die someday. I don't have time for that.
Sorry, I did that. Yeah.
But the thing is, it's by a author I usually really fucking love, and I like, part of the fascination is how do you take the work of this person who is so fucking good and amazing and like singularly incredible and turn it into a bad TV show? So like that's where the interest lies for me.
Oh, is it a Junji Ito thing?
Oh, oh. Wait a second. Was this was this an eye patch wolf video?
no, no, it was not an eye patch. It was a Papa Meat video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I
No.
think he got stuck on a layover and he just started talking about how much he hated the new Junji Ito show.
I've been watching the new Junji Ito show. I was just watching it a couple of hours ago. And,
What do you think?
It's really bad.
Ooh, I'm so mad.
I haven't read enough Junji Ito to like really be a huge fan. Like I've been meaning to, and I have a bunch of the books. I just haven't read much of them.
Mhm.
So like even watching them without knowing the source material and how good it is, it's like this sucks. This is like not interesting. And it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't understand that like when you adapt a thing that humans can read at any pace into like this is definitely 20 minutes, it means that everything like it's horrible. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing
Yeah,
is,
and
I'm
I'm
one of
not
those.
surprised that the Junji Ito show's bad, because a lot of the things that he does are very specific to a comic page. So
Yes, yes.
it would be very hard to adapt.
Yeah, and
It's kind of like how the TV movies based off Discworld are never quite as good as the books because like part of the charm of the books is like the narration that's not in the show.
yeah, the internal
Yeah.
monologues and stuff. Ooh.
Oh,
Or,
no.
A thing that I have to steal from an eye patch wolf video about the previous attempted Junji Ito adaptation, which also sucked, is that he was very good at page turns. So you turn the page and there's the thing. The way they adapt that in the show is just you see a reaction shot of the character going, "Whoa," and then it's like that brief pause before it like cuts to the thing that's supposed to be shocking. But when
Yeah.
it's done in a non like paper visual media, when it's done like that, it's like I know something's coming now. Like it doesn't work. It's not surprising the way when like you turn the page and there's a thing looking at you.
Exactly.
Well, I think
don't know.
this is also kind of the power of like black and white art. I think there is a lot left to the imagination with black. It's why I actually prefer black and white art to color work in comics, because it leaves a lot to the imagination. And the reality is, because I have read, I think most things by Junji Ito, and I don't actually like horror. I just like his art. And the thing about it is like, a lot of the concepts are concepts. A lot of the concepts are kind of silly. Like there's one where a man slowly turns into a snail. And
I love that one.
that's in concept. It's very silly,
Oh, yeah.
but the way it's drawn, you can kind of imagine what it feels like. Like if you actually saw this in real life, you'd go, "That's silly." But like the way it's drawn, and it leaves so much to the imagination. Like how fast does this happen? What does it feel like? What is the texture? What is the smell? You know, all that stuff is. You kind of it lets your brain fill in a lot of gaps, so your brain can do like some of the better horror stuff. I think lets your brain do a lot of heavy lifting, because sometimes the thing you imagine is worse than whatever they could actually draw. And when it's colored and animated, like they do have to fill in all those details, and then it's like, oh, that's goofy.
Yeah. It's bad.
There
Adaptation's
is-
really hard.
There was Mel Brooks quote that was the difference between tragedy and comedy is he says tragedy is when I cut my finger, comedy is when you fall in a manhole and die.
Yeah.
And it's basically like it's timing and extremeness. So like it's kind of the same thing with horror is like for horror you gotta like stretch it out, but if you say like show the same thing happening very quickly, it becomes like funny.
Chat's talking
remember
about
one-
Junji Ito's cat comic. I have that comic. I love that
Non
comic.
and Moo.
Yeah, his terrible cat.
Yeah,
But
I remember as an example of like, is it a comedy or is it a horror? Is when I was a senior, one guy, we all had to pitch our senior project, and one guy was like, I'm gonna make a comic about a vampire that loses his teeth, and he's trying to use animal teeth to replace his fangs.
Okay.
And I thought it was gonna be like a goofy story. And then he starts to put pages in, and it's like these tremendously detailed, the vampire like ripping teeth out of animals that are highly detailed and like trying to jam them in his own jaw. and just real body horror shit. And it's like, this is very different than what I was expecting based on how you summed it up.
Oh yeah, execution is everything. And one of the things I really enjoy about Junji Ito is he kind of a lot of his work really does kind of straddle that line between, oh my fucking god, that's horrible to behold, and oh fuck off. Like because okay, one of the first things I read of his was Tomie. And
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
everyone here who knows Junji Ito knows Tomie. And I loved it conceptually. I loved the individual stories. I loved the sense of foreboding and the sort of inescapability of what was going to happen to both Tomie and the men involved with Tomie, because and the suggestion like this is just going to keep happening until the world is full of Tomie and there's nothing anyone can do about it, and anyone who has the knowledge that this is happening, they're helpless too, because you know, number one, who the fuck's going to believe you? Number two, even if everyone understands this is what's going to happen, everyone is powerless to stop it. And I think powerlessness and not understanding is an important element of horror, and I fucking love that about Tomie. But then I think like the third thing I read by him, if we're not counting like shit on the internet, like this hole was made for me, was Gyo.
Yeah,
And I
with the
was
fish
on
with the
bo-
legs.
Yeah, I was on board with Gyo for like the first few pages, and then like there's this whole sequence where there's a knock on the door and it's a fucking shark.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh fuck off, no. And like I wasn't remotely scared of Gyo. I just like, how far is he going to push this was the only thing. And I think I actually like, I was like, check please, when like the rotten body on a spider automaton carnival came to town, and someone was like walking down the street and there was like a carnival barker surrounded by like bloated human corpses strapped to these spider automatons, like doing balancing acts and juggling, and I'm like, you know, I think I'm done.
Yeah, that was definitely one where I was like, okay, how are you gonna make fish with robot legs scary? And it turns out you didn't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like it was funnier when it didn't make any fucking sense. Like that these fish were on land just skittering around. Like, and then he tried to explain it, and it's like, no, don't explain it. No, just have it be fish. No. But yeah, he is really good at just pushing it up to the line, but he definitely goes over it.
Y'all got me thinking about the Deptford Mice trilogy.
Yeah, so like all the animated versions of this, they just lack any kind of like conclusion or sense of there being a story. It's like really shocking when one of them actually has like a plot. And they're like very close adaptations, but because they don't go anywhere, there's no rhythm to it the way it is when you read it. It just ends on like, well, that has happened now, and it's like,
Yeah, like
I feel like I haven't actually seen anything by Junji Ito, even though I've seen a lot of this show now.
yeah, it's like it. All right, this is kind of like making me think of years and years and years ago when they first adapted Watchmen. I remember the
I
common.
was talking to Harry about this yesterday.
We were just talking about it, yeah. For me, that was
Yeah,
this morning.
like
because-
the common thing was, oh, they'll never make a proper Watchmen movie. They'll never actually make it the right way where they actually do it in the comic. You know, they'll never get it right. And then the Watchmen movie came out, and it like kind of plotted along with the comic, and a lot of the shots were reproduced direct from, you know, panels in the comic, and it was just sort of like lifeless, and it was just sort of like kind of by the numbers and not super. Don't get me wrong, they spent a shitload of money on the special effects and everything, but it just kind of landed with a thud, if you ask me. And I think a big part of that is something that, I mean, Harry, you were like fucking talking exactly about this, where the mediums are different and the mediums excel communicating information in ways particular to that medium.
Yeah.
So what I said to Harry yesterday when we weren't streaming is, when I went to see Watchmen, I was expecting it to be absolutely terrible. But the opening credits are really, really good. And that's the only part where he wasn't trying to recreate the comic. But the other thing is, I recently reread Watchmen, and there is, I think, part of why Dr. Manhattan on Mars is so iconic is because it is something that is so hard to do outside of comics and still convey the same thing
Mm-hmm.
because of the way that like the captions repeat over multiple images
Yeah.
really does help the layered time thing in a way that you can't do when the movie is controlling the pace that you consume things rather than you as a reader. Um,
Yeah.
so
I really liked the Watchmen movie, and I think watching it made me question how I think about films in a way that has led me to being the man I am today.
Oh.
But I do think like this is me being my most pretentious, but like
Oh, go
Watchmen the
for it.
movie
Go for
is to me a meditation on how you can't adapt Watchmen.
Ah.
Where like it's almost sarcastically accurate to the comics. Where
Yeah.
like, oh, down to the panels, like Rorschach's fucking face is the same
Yeah.
as in that, and it's like this is you wouldn't do that unless you were trying to make a point about how that isn't enough. There's a really famous interview with Alan Moore where someone asked him how he would adapt Watchmen, and he said, "I wouldn't," you know, in his little voice, in his dumb little voice, and and I feel like that film is a man who likes Watchmen trying to explain why you wouldn't adapt it into a film.
Oh wow.
Complete with the changes and the adjustments he made. Like I think that really stuck out to me was the Vietnam flashback is built entirely out of imagery from other films. There's this sense that no one actually remembers Vietnam. We just remember the movies. We just remember the pop culture, and like the actual historical event that is this horrible war is basically dead. It's gone, and I've just found that really strange. There was something like uncanny about that movie that made me go like, this is either saying something so interesting that I don't get it, or somehow a lot of very like clearly quite smart people made an extremely boring thing.
Oh my
and
God.
I don't know. I had the same feeling like going back and watching his Dawn of the Dead remake, where it's explicitly about how like the Dawn of the Dead movie has become a thing we all like everyone has like uncritically consumed for so many years that the points that it had to make have disappeared, and it's just become this movie
Well,
about how you have to go for the head or whatever.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think also and this is another thing I brought up to Harry about talking about the Watchmen movie is that the humanity is kind of taken out of Watchmen because he's so focused on the superhero parts, which those are the parts that people remember, is while rereading it, the thing that struck me is how much humanity there is when he's not talking about the superheroes. Like there's that guy who runs a newsstand, and you repeatedly get the shitty teen that's reading all his comics but not buying them at the newsstand.
Yeah.
And that this happens every day. And when New York gets blown up at the end, that newsstand guy's last act is trying to shield that shitty teen from the explosion.
Yeah.
I really I think like one of the sad realities of that adaptation is that you don't have time to like do that or even adapt like all of the like they had a bunch of just shitty comics in Watchmen like and that can't be in there. I think like on the DVD they had a full like animated adaptation of some of those comics like
the pulpy ones.
Yeah.
I've seen the animation.
I've read the comic. I've never seen the movie.
Yeah. It's like I feel like it's sad because you can't adapt Watchmen. And making a film about how you can't doesn't really fix that. You know, it's the same thing with like that's the other problem with all of his movies is like everything he does comes off as a criticism of an actual thing, but he does it while also doing it. So like Sucker Punch is probably one of the most straightforwardly feminist films ever made, but it does it in the worst way possible, and it sucks.
Yeah, I remember when
that
that movie fucking dropped, and
Yeah.
I had to, without permission, the fucking discourse forced its way into my timeline, and I don't advertise when I mute a keyword on Twitter because that kind of destroys the point of muting me. But yeah, Sucker Punch got muted real fast because I didn't want to hear about how actually all these women trapped in this fucking asylum fantasizing about escape instead of actually escaping is incredibly
Listen,
feminist.
if I want to watch John Hamm be shitty to women, I'll just rewatch Mad Men for the 15th time.
Yeah. It's just god, it's
But
I'll just look through his window.
uh,
just John Hamm
but-
opens the curtains and there you are pressed up against the glass like a moth.
Yeah. I'll go to
like
221
the,
Hollywood Boulevard and
But yeah, like the opening credits of Watchmen, I think because they are the least faithful part of the movie, like that's why they're the best part, because it's like summing up all that in between the issue content in a montage that I think works really well. And I was like, oh, I saw that part and was like, oh, maybe this movie will be good. And it's like, oh no, and that's the best part.
Oops.
Yeah. Movies do some things really well that you can't do in comics, and comics do some things really well in movies. And I think it is a mistake to think the only way to adapt a comic is make that movie as comic-like as possible. And it's a mistake people keep insisting people who adapt comics into movies make, or else they're doing it wrong. And I have feelings about it. I like, let a movie be a movie, and understand if a comic becomes a movie, in order to be the most successful movie possible, it can't be a comic anymore.
Oh no, my family does they don't understand what I do, which is fine. But like they're always like, oh, don't you want to make a Disney movie someday? I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I don't do that. But we've also had the conversation. Oh, wouldn't you like one of your things to be licensed into a movie? And I always go, yeah, that'd be a great payday. But like once you have the rights, that's yours. Do whatever. I don't care if you ruin it. I don't care. Give me the money and go away. It was my job to make a good comic. It is your job to make a good movie. Beat it.
All of my favorite stuff, I feel like, doesn't work when you try to put it in another medium. Part of why I like Mad Men so much is because Mad Men can't be a movie. Mad Men can't be a comic. Like, there is part of the serialization is the point, but also the visuals and the music and everything. BoJack's another favorite of mine. You can't do the episode about his mom in anything but an animation. Like,
I feel that same way about There Will Be Blood. I think this was years ago, but on Twitter I saw, because I really wanted to see it, I saw There Will Be Blood years after it came out. And I remember thinking while watching it, wow, this is like a quintessential film. Like, this can only be a movie. And it's like a perfect incarnation of this story in movie form.
And yet it's based on a comic book.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like tight as a drum. It's incredibly well paced. I love it. I fucking love their work.
It's I just a book, not a comic book.
Oh, damn it. I made that up. I didn't. When you said I was like, oh.
When you said it was based on a comic, I thought it was a comic book. I thought it was
Scramble.
I made that up, and the fact that it might have been true really.
There Will Be Blood is based off a book that's written by the same guy who wrote The Jungle.
Okay. Right.
And it was incredibly, just like, for folks who haven't seen it, it's like a perfect incarnation of behold a movie, and like that is a movie. You can't imagine it any other way. And I just really like There Will Be Blood.
The book's title is Oil.
That's it.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure like the fucking Academy Awards agree with me. I think didn't it win? It won a couple. So obviously, I'm
definitely won a bunch.
Yeah,
I always try to respect the Iron Curtain between mediums, where like maybe it's because I listen to a lot of Dirty Old Ladies, but like I always like everything I've written always comes out in like script form, and I cannot just, I hate being one of those people like, oh, I guess I could do it as a comic and just pretend you can just translate them that easily. I vowed to never write a comic, and then you asked me to. So. And that explains why it came out the way it did.
No, it came out so good. Oh my god!
You came out asking, you had this premise about, about technology in the future, and I was like, how do I ruin this? How do I make this worse? So what's the opposite of that premise?
But honestly, that like the story you and Scutch made for Failure to Launch has been
Yeah.
really convenient these past couple of
Yeah.
weeks with Twitter
It
falling
keeps,
apart.
it keeps turning out to be really relevant. That's really fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it gets
Um,
it's like, oh, Twitter's broken. Here's a time to do some self promo. Oh,
Yeah.
Twitter's broken again. I mean, we all have noticed how Twitter is like increasingly fucking broken. Like,
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
all right, here's the thing. So obviously anything on the internet, there's going to be a shitload of spam like everywhere, right? You know, you can't do anything without a reply being, oh, like cheap meds here.
Yeah.
But that is happening way more frequently to me, I feel, than it
Same,
used
yeah.
to.
I'm
Okay,
getting
all
a
right,
bunch
cool.
more
It's
than
not my
normal, yeah.
it's not delusion. Because
Yeah.
I'll just like fucking be commenting on like a Reuters story, or I'll be tweeting about like I made a ham sandwich, and it'll get comment. So and so helped me get my account back on Insta plus 10,000 followers. Click here.
God, I have
Yeah.
to like watch certain words.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of like sim swap stuff lately. I don't know what that is,
Really?
but yeah, it's just replying to stuff and oh, I was just added 7 minutes ago in a tweet with just a bunch of crypto words in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there we go.
I learned
but
really fast to purposely misspell NFT.
that's incredible.
Misspell MST. Don't ever say shirt.
Yeah.
I love that.
need-
Sorry.
Oh, go for it.
I love that a comic that I wrote, you know, a bit beforehand about shooting Elon Musk in the dick, became only more relevant. Like,
Yeah.
I expect, it aged incredibly well. We got very lucky there.
Like wine. Like the
Yeah.
best vintage.
I-
I actually showed that to Backer Kit because they're handling marketing too. I was like, hey, can we use this? And they're like, okay, so I don't know how Facebook's going to feel about suggesting assaulting a billionaire in your ad campaign. So we're gonna pass on that one. Like, okay,
Yeah.
fair mistake.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
I had to do a lot of research for that one. I wish I'd done more. Like, once you go into a hole of like, here's what
Yeah.
the Luddites had to say, you're like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
There's a really popular anecdote about how like essentially at one point the British government was sending more troops to kill Luddites than they were like Napoleon.
Oh my
and
god.
it's true, but only like in a very specific sense. So I wanted to make sure I worded it correctly. And so
Yeah.
that was one of those things where I want to make sure that the historical
really
accuracy
like,
people don't. kill me.
I really liked when you submitted the script and you explained that in 1812, England burnt the White House down. And I sent you a note that's like, this is getting published in America. We know.
Actually,
We already know that.
I fucking counter that like a lot of people don't.
Oh.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of seriously, I'm sure it's no different in the fucking UK, fucking ex-imperialists, but one
It's
of
the
the
only
things,
thing we teach in American history.
it's like one of the things that was interesting about my childhood is I had a friend who was from England in middle school, and so she had enough education in the English school system. And then she came over to America, and she always had some really fun shit to say about how we were being educated in the American school system. Because there was a lot of like, that is not how I heard it happened, but okay.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
all the books in America, like I don't remember learning about the War of 1812.
Yeah,
Period.
Americans are not taught about the War of 1812, and that's when that happened, right? So,
Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
I was. I guess
It depends
that,
on it's
like,
regional, I think.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's regional. It's based on state. I remember because I grew up in Boston, so Kate Ashwin was coming to the U.S. for I think New York Comic Con and was planning to do some East Coast like tourism on the U.S. and asked like, well, what would there be that's touristy to do in Boston? And I was like, I don't know if you want to do any of the tourist stuff in Boston because it's mostly about how we beat the British like single-handedly in the like as far as Massachusetts is concerned, we didn't need the other 13 colonies. We did it single-handedly, like it was all us.
Yeah, and I mean, I grew up in the suburbs of Washington D.C., so not close to Boston, but not super far either. And we straight up did not learn, period, about the War of 1812. We learned about the Revolutionary War, and then someone pressed the fast forward button, and we learned about the Civil War.
Yeah.
And then
same.
and keep in mind, this is like, 80s, 90s. I'm old. And then someone pressed the fast forward button again, and we went straight from the Civil War all the way, not even World War II, to the civil rights movement. And then, yeah, exactly. And then we stopped after that. Like, that was my history.
Well, also,
And I only started learning about this fucking country when I'm contrarian by nature. I began to decide to go back and fill in the holes because I'm all like, don't tell me nothing fucking happened for 50 years.
Whereas Massachusetts is so up its own butt about early American history. We get an extra holiday called Patriots Day, which is specifically about the first shots fired during the Revolutionary War. Like leaving Massachusetts and learning the rest of the country does not have that holiday. I was like, what?
So since I grew up in Texas, we basically breeze over most of the early stuff. We're mostly like, again, most of the education you get gets real regional. So like, for example, we really focused on like Texas history, because Texas, you know, it started out as like a free, not quite republic, but it was technically, they like to call themselves, they were technically a state of Mexico that refused to follow Mexican rule, but that is not exactly how it's taught. But basically, we learned a lot about Texas independence, and we built a lot of models of the Alamo and learned how to make adobe bricks.
And when you say the Pledge of Allegiance in Texas, you pledge allegiance to Texas too, don't you?
Yeah, we have a Texas.
That's super fucked up.
We have a Texas addendum.
Yeah, I think a lot of other states don't realize that when you say the Pledge of Allegiance in Texas, you pledge allegiance to Texas. And it's like insane because all other states look at Texas like, you are so fucked up. You are so fucked up. But if you live in Texas, you think you are the hottest shit on the planet.
Hey!
No, seriously.
I really labor under the assumption that Americans don't know something just on the back of it. I'm reminded of this amazing interview with former Iranian president Khatami, when he quoted Alexis de Tocqueville, and there's this brief aside where he says, which I'm sure most Americans have read. It's just like in an interview on CNN.
Oh God, can I remember the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh God.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There, I got it.
No, nice. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for liberty and justice, for which it stands. I think.
Oh, ours was longer than yours.
Wow.
Yeah, you were supposed to stand up with your hand over your heart and do the allegiance together.
But you don't have to. You don't have to.
You did used to have to.
Not where I grew up. You didn't.
Where I grew up, you did. You would get sent to detention if you abstained.
Yeah, in where I grew up in suburban Maryland, there were plenty of kids there who kind of had that little shitty streak, and I was among them, where if there was a Pledge of Allegiance being said in middle school, you did not have to stand up. A lot of people did. I would say out of 100, 95 did.
Now, you could abstain from morning prayer, but you'd get bullied for it.
We did not have prayer.
We had a morning prayer segment, and if you you were allowed to skip it, but you got bullied for it. So
yeah,
wow.
The closest thing we had where I grew up in middle school is when there was sex ed. You could basically they sent a note home with your parents that said, "What's up? Tomorrow the kids are learning about penises and vaginas. If you don't want your kid to learn about penises and vaginas, here's a form to fill out explicitly telling us why you don't want your kid to learn about penises and vaginas." And again, out of 100 kids, maybe 5 got sent to the library while we watched educational films. But most went along with it.
Oh my God, I have a distinct memory of sex ed because I had that moment when I realized they were teaching the girls and the boys different things. Because during the girls' one, they had their whole spiel, and they gave us all pads and tampons. Like, here's a sample. This is yours now. And we were like, huh. Okay, so I remember I had a clear mesh thing in my backpack, so I put the pad in, and all the girls were leaving this, and then the boys were leaving theirs, and they said, wait, y'all get snacks? Because they thought the things in wrappers were snacks, and we're just like, what the fuck are y'all talking about?
Yeah, it's like when you go to the girls' bathroom, there's just snacks. Oh my God. No,
I remember that I was one of the few kids that did not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, more because I was tired rather than rebellious.
Yeah. But yeah, that went to the Supreme Court. I don't know the actual case, but I know that the Supreme Court
Oh
says you have to.
God.
And
Kel, sorry.
Yeah.
That just
Yeah.
reminded me of there was one specific, I can't remember which grade it was, but I think everyone in my class kind of figured out because everyone's saying the pledge at once. A few people can just mumble it and get through it and no one will notice. But I think gradually everyone in the class realized that, and the teacher got real mad because it slowly devolved into because we were all mumbling it, and you can't get away with that if you're all doing it. And so we got in trouble, and they were like, "No, do it again." It was like, ah, crap, we had a thing going.
yeah, when I was in middle school and we did the sex ed thing, this is something I've mentioned before, but mostly it just sticks with me because sort of like the deep horror that would like you learn to sort of have some kind of empathy for people around that age. And I had a great deal of empathy for one boy in our class whose mom was the science teacher and whose mom was teaching sex ed with her son sitting there. And when you're at that age, when you're like a 12-year-old, you can't think of any more fiendish torture than sitting in a room surrounded by your friends while your mom talks about how penises and vaginas feel good and that is why people do the sex.
Oh, sure, I
even
can.
when they shouldn't. And it's like a lot of people are kind of like looking at him, but I guess they had like a good relationship as mother and son because he didn't seem even remotely, weirded out by any of this.
Yeah, I was about to say that's not hardly the
Anyway,
worst thing I could
what was
imagine.
your education like, Harry?
Yes, tell us.
Oh, they didn't teach us anything.
Liar. So
Yeah, have a guess.
all
That's
the
what they said.
chapters in the textbook are like, we brought civilization to India.
No,
The
you
Indians
quit
are
that
so
voice.
very
You
grateful."
quit that voice before I
And
find
then
you.
we
I'll
went to
show up at
Africa,
your
but we were
doorstep.
very nice there. Nothing like the Belgians.
I made a note in my head not to volunteer this, but you asked me to contribute, so now I will. The most owned I've ever been was when I went to see the film Knocked Up. I saw it with my mother, and there's a scene in Knocked Up where a character says like she can't get pregnant if she's on top. And in the crowded theater, my mother turned to me and deliberately said very loudly, "That's not true." And that my life was ruined. From that moment onwards.
It scarred itself into your gray matter. So to this very
oh my god.
day.
Yeah, I
It's the
learned
funniest moment in my
God.
mother's life, and I will never forgive her for it.
Oh,
That's amazing though. I like that
God.
she was just making sure.
Yeah.
This seed wasn't planting itself in your brain, promising to cause trouble years down the line.
Oh god, that just it's not even it's one of those loose brain association things where it's like not technically relevant, but you made me think of when I first like came out to my family. They were pretty accepting for the most part, but my family's problem is they rib each other very hard.
Yeah.
And my brother is in the same boat. He's basically ace. And it basically became a thing where it's like, Amanda, come in here. There's a naked woman in the movie. And I just like, God damn it, leave me alone. Amanda, there's a naked woman. Get in here. And then my poor brother, when they found out he's like super not interested in sex, it became this thing like, Cameron, get in here. They're naked. And he would just he would stomp into the room, glare at everybody and goes, I do not care. And then stomp back out.
He just had to make sure you knew.
No, like with it was like clockwork. Like he would always make sure to stomp into the room, tell you I don't care, and leave. Whereas I just wouldn't leave. I would just be like, don't go out there.
Aw.
You know what? I am like old. I'm like
What?
older than Kel. I'm older than Amanda. Harry, I'm sure as shit older than you. I'm positive.
I'm
And
14, so.
I just turned 8. But when I was being, when I was being taught the sex in middle school,
Gasp.
that was around the point where sex ed was basically like. There's this clip that's going around from an old
Badger,
sex ed
shut
film.
it. Sorry.
There's this clip going around from an old sex ed film where it's like somebody very naively asking, "What if I used to?" And some woman goes, "Well, you just have to be prepared to die." And everyone like laughs, but it's like, no,
Sorry, that was loud.
That's okay. It's like that's pretty much how it was when I was like maybe 14 to 16. Because that was when they like, AIDS was like, people had figured out this is a thing that exists and it's a thing you can get, and you can get it from sex no matter what kind of sex you were down with. And when you got it, you just fucking died. And so that was like the sex ed environment. There was, there were drugs for it, but mostly you in 10 years you were dead. And there was no Berlin patient and shit like that, but it was
So we
dire.
had sex ed every year of, like, starting in 4th grade, we had at least a month of sex ed every year. And then I remember in high school, the guy that taught sex ed, because since we already knew the basics, it was more about going over safe sex stuff rather than like actual biology stuff. And we made our teacher feel old because the video that he showed us explaining all the different birth controls, he told us, well, this video's out of date, so there's one type of birth control and they're going to mention called the sponge, which you can't get anymore because Elaine bought them all. And, and I was the only one that laughed, and he like got so like he died inside because none of us had seen Seinfeld except for me. And
that is there was a thing going around on Twitter today about, okay, so I guess American Girl has a 90s doll now.
Oh yeah.
And like she makes zines and stuff. So comics Twitter was like, hey, look. But I saw people being all like, cool, I'm dead. I'm a corpse, I'm rotting.
God, I'm like, I don't understand that reaction. Why? You're fine.
Because that's all right. I'm at
Isn't
this
it
point
cool
now
that that's history? I don't know. Why isn't that cool?
It's like, what's kind of fascinating me is I'm at that point now where I am watching my childhood. Like, I now understood what my parents probably felt like watching the 70s and the 60s get like distilled down into like 3 or 4 talking points and 2 or 3 aesthetics. And the feeling when you watch that happen, because I've seen it happen to the 80s. Like right now, the 80s for people is like soft blue and pink neon and maybe a sunset on a neon grid that is slowly going by to like really cheesy synthesizer. And the feeling you have when you watch something you lived, something that was multifaceted and multi-experiential and had a lot of texture and experience to it, something that was very real, and you see someone throw that in a stock pot and leave it on low overnight, and what comes out is a graphic for YouTubers to use when they're talking about tea, and you're like, that's not no, people didn't like all crimp their hair and wear leg warmers and do aerobics and sit on white couches and drive ugly Lamborghini. That's okay.
I guess that sensation's kind of foreign to me because I think the thing, like, for example, like my mom has always been with it, like, and very hip. Like, she's never been frozen in one time period. Every time, whatever is the new thing, she adapts to it. Like, her fashion now is the fashion of 20-year-olds right now. Like, that's what she's like. That's her sensibilities. So I've always watched my own mom like evolve with the times. So like the idea of anything being fixed in time or, oh, that was my time. And my grandma too, like my grandma's also been very like, whatever is the new fashions, that's what I do. So yeah, it's been, I guess there's not a lot of nostalgia for stuff in my family. None of us like the past very much.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but it's weird seeing like someone hashtag 80s vibe, 80s aesthetic, and it's this like neon cyan conversation pit, white leather couch, Da Vinci's Michelangelo's David bisected and slightly off center in the corner, while there's fucking glass bricks everywhere.
Oh, you can blame vaporwave for that.
And I'm like sitting there going, well, no, everything was actually like really, really ugly wood paneling and earth tone carpets. Like I was there.
And waterbeds.
And waterbeds. I remember the wood paneling in cars and the wood paneling all over TVs and the wood and like the plastic wood paneling.
I
they
remember
insisted on
getting
putting on.
accidentally
That didn't
adhered.
make it. That didn't make it out of the aesthetic boiling.
I remember getting accidentally adhered to a bare waterbed once.
How was that? How'd that feel? How'd that go for you?
Awful. You know when you like sit like on a leather or pleather chair and you stick to it?
Yeah.
That my full body basically, because it was really hot and I was a preteen and I had the idea, well, the waterbed is full of water and the blankets are warm, so if you take all the blankets off the waterbed, you're basically sitting on a giant like cooler. So and it
Yeah.
was kind of
Oh.
cool, but once you had to get up,
You couldn't.
you could not. You
Um,
just adhered to
So
it.
on this sort of topic, Spike,
Yes.
I recently watched that 90s show, which is the sequel to that 70s show.
I have seen the commercials.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And what prompted me to do it is there was a YouTuber, Jose, who his little icon's a blue jay.
Oh yeah, I started
um,
watching Jose
He
recently.
did kind of he did a retrospective of a bunch of sitcoms, and one of the things he pointed out that made that 70s show successful where other 70s nostalgia didn't work as well is they resisted the urge to do the distilled time period thing,
Mm-hmm.
because since it's supposed to be teens that happen to live in the 70s, the wood paneling that you remember is more associated with the 70s, but the thing that people forget is not everyone updates their shit every 10 years or
Yeah.
even like every year. So that 70s show having a little bit of 50s and 60s because of the parents not updating the house as regularly, or
Mhm.
the kids are not
Excuse
all
me.
up to the date fashion. Like some of them have a few years out of date fashion wise.
Yeah.
Makes
Abigail-
it feel more authentic to the time. And they did a similar thing with that 90s show. That 90s show has different problems. And it's probably not going to get a second season because it's on Netflix. But like it did also
Give me a
kind of
second, I'm
be like,
stretching.
no, we're gonna mix in a little bit of 80s and 70s in there because obviously Red and Kitty are old and they're not gonna update their house.
Abigail
and-
Lorraine just said McDonald's ashtrays, and it was like I had a flashback. That's 80s. Smoke colored or like kind of like cloudy urine toned McDonald's ashtrays. That's 80s.
Oh, my most prized
very
photo.
funny.
Oh, keep talking.
That like our memories of the 80s are like so not what the 80s actually was, that we're just like, yeah, I loved vape, I love cyberpunk. It's like, no, it
No.
sucked, it all sucked.
It was all-
Um,
and-
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't have
like-
memories of the 80s because I was born in 87, so like
Yeah,
All
I
I know
was
is
born in
the
92, so I have no memories of it. But
God.
it's this is the kind of thing that like this is why I liked the Watchmen thing, where it's like
Mhm.
all
No.
we have no people who were alive during these wars don't remember it this way, but no one who will enter those wars is like younger than 80 now. So
you're
Um,
between the
No,
ages of my
Joe
youngest
is,
brother and stepsister. I could throw you.
wow, yeah.
I don't think that's how that works,
Nimona or
actually.
Joe is saying Mad Men got criticized because all the cars are too new. In Mad Men's defense, everyone who has a car is super duper wealthy
Yeah.
and like would be getting the newest cars because they can.
Yeah.
One of-
The other big
one of-
thing, like I remember there was a whole thing about them like going out of the way to get authentic apples for the sets and stuff, because that's not the apples that they had in this time period. It's like, yeah, sure, but like that's not what the show is about.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
find that. Who cares?
Yeah, one of
Whatever.
my favorite things about Mad Men is, and this sounds bizarre, I really like the show.
Mm.
One of my favorite things about Mad
I'm
Men,
going
other
to the
than fact
bathroom. I'll
that-
be right back.
No, you're not allowed. Go where you're sitting. One of my favorite things about Mad Men was number one, Kel at one point messaged me and was all like, "Hey, do you know this guy?" I'm like, "Who?" And Kel was like, "This guy, this dude who plays the guy who cuts his nipple off.
Ginsburg.
Yeah, Ginsburg. Do you know him? And I'm all like, not fucking sure why I would. And Kel was like, I was reading his Wikipedia and he went to your high school. And I know when you graduated and he was a year behind you. Are you sure you don't know him? And I was like, wait, let me go fucking look at Ginsburg again. And I fucking looked at him and I stared at him for like 3 or 4 minutes. I was like, son of a bitch, I do know you.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have gotten that fucking yearbook. But my second favorite thing about Mad Men is it's mostly about white people. And as a result, even though it takes place during the 60s, it completely ignores this massively important part of American history, because that is what most white people were doing at the time, especially rich white people.
What were we doing?
It ignores it until it is inignorable.
Exactly, until they can't ignore it, which is like exactly how this country functions on every level. They try to ignore shit until it is more dangerous to keep ignoring it than it is to actually do something about it. And the Black people who are in Mad Men completely track with like all those family stories I hear about, you know, shit, interpersonal relations with white people at the time, which is like very fucking cautious, because even the ones that were nice to you, you had to worry about.
Jesus.
And I really fucking like that one. Yeah.
So was your school does your school have a Wikipedia page?
Yeah. Oh god, this is embarrassing. Yes. My high school
She
has
went
a
to
Wikipedia
fancy school.
page. It is
Yeah.
I did not. I went to public school.
Fancy school.
I
You
went
were
to
fancy.
a fucking public school.
Me too. My school doesn't have a Wikipedia.
Oh,
Okay,
God.
I went to like 12 different schools, so I can't say that.
Yeah. No, I went to Winston Churchill High School, which is yeah.
What a good name.
I knew you fucking
Wow.
know that. Yeah, and it's okay though, because I think, all right, this is what I heard. I don't know if it's true, that only people born in what is now the U.S. or American citizens can have American public schools named after them. But Winston Churchill is okay because he got an honorary American citizenship after World War II. Therefore, our high school could be named Winston Churchill.
Interesting.
That's an interesting loophole there. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true. It's what I was told.
We baptized him retroactively, so now we can.
He's Mormon now too. He's Mormon now too.
Yeah, it's been a
But
Mormon
yeah,
school.
my high school has a fucking Wikipedia page, and it's so like, who wrote this? Which one of you assholes wrote this? Like, that's the vibe.
Oh
And
man.
it's mostly because, just in case you don't know, Harry, I grew up in a town called Potomac, and if you want the vibe of the town, it currently has its own Real Housewives show.
Okay.
And when I was a child, a kid in my town had a bat mitzvah. And I am pretty sure, I forget which group it was. I'm pretty sure the parents hired either NSYNC or New Kids on the Block to perform at their bat mitzvah.
Oh man! At the
yes.
at the event last night, one of the people fucking actually heard about the town I grew up in, and it fucking blew my mind. I was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah. And,
Like, apparently most high schools have a Wikipedia.
oh, good.
They do?
That's-
Okay,
that's
time to
amazing.
look it up.
But also, this it's like where I grew up. It's like it's where either you work in DC, and again, this is like 80s, 90s. You didn't want to live in the city.
There it
so
is,
you
yeah.
spent your entire fucking life driving 40 minutes into the city to make a DC salary, and then driving 40 minutes home to live in your acre and a half McMansion in the suburbs. So like I grew up in like I guess they call them bedroom community, commuter town kind of place where everybody like didn't talk to their neighbors and didn't know each other. And everyone worked in DC or they were some kind of CIA spook being resettled by the government.
Great.
Those are the two people that lived in Potomac.
I went to the Wikipedia page for my high school hoping like, oh, did I make the alumni? Am I notable enough? And I found that at the time, like there was like 2 alumni on there who were well known, and one of them is a kid who was like a year younger than me, who is now like a Paralympian canoeist. So good for him. And like the only other notable thing on the page for years until they updated it recently was the time in 2006 when the library got literally filled with shit after a sewage leak. I'm like, oh, I remember that. I'm still not on it. I'm still not on the page.
Yeah,
but-
Dahani Jones is on our page.
God, if I ever got famous, it'd be really weird because, like, again, I've been to so many schools. It's like, which one claims me?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, they all would, to be perfectly fine.
I went to 3 different schools for the 3rd grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Luckily, 2 of them had the same uniform system, so that worked out.
Oh my god.
Apparently, all the famous people from my high school are sports people.
Sports,
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah, we had our big sports guy I mentioned was Dahani Jones, and I don't know, like, I don't follow enough football to know how meaningful that is. But he had like a show on a travel channel for a while, and part of the reason I even recall him is my mom was super creepy about her headcanon was that him and me were gonna get married one day. And it's just I don't fucking know. Oh, okay. So Harry, I'm gonna here's all the secrets of the shitty Potomac suburbs. So there's this organization in suburban Maryland, and I think in a lot of suburbs, especially along the East Coast, called Jack and Jill. Okay, and Jack and Jill is basically middle class black people who live in middle class and upper class black people who live in mostly white environments, but they want all of their black children to be friends and marry each other. So maybe
I think you mentioned this on your
Yeah.
previous podcast.
on
Definitely.
once or twice a month, they force all these kids who pretty much do not know each other into a room and plan activities. It's like this forced little social club. It's the lamest shit on earth. And like that is where I predominantly remember Tahani from. And my mom would talk about how isn't he handsome? Isn't he tall? You guys would make cute kids. So it's like it wasn't subtle. It was, and it's like, again, I'm extremely contrarian. So it's like the first inkling, I was like, oh fuck you, fuck this, and fuck all of it. And just but yeah, Jack and Jill, everyone, Google that shit. Get some
No.
insight. Just
name.
just the roiling underbelly that you didn't even know was there. It's like Kiwanis, Amanda.
Like what?
Is that what you were in, like Kiwanis?
Awanas?
Awanas. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how that's similar.
It's
not-
just like
Awanas
trying to
were
get-
basically Girl Scout Christian missionaries.
yeah, it was a group you were forced to go to
Oh no, I
socialize.
did it on no.
Oh, okay.
Sunday school was where you went to socialize, but that's because everyone socialized at church. I joined Awanas because I wanted to be a good Christian.
Oh.
That was a choice I made. And then and the problem with that is when I actually got to, they make you research the Bible. And then when I did that, I go, oh, I don't like this. I actually don't like the things I'm reading anymore.
Oh.
But
I'm
I got a
sorry.
shirt
But yeah, reading the Bible is
and
the best
badges.
way
They
to
do
make
give
sure
you
you are not a
badges. Like
Christian.
there's badges and patches for like every Bible book you learn. There's different things you do. Like there's volunteer work, there's education stuff. Ideally, you're eventually supposed to become some like little missionary. But then I switched gears and I joined the Air Force Junior ROTC. Like this is gonna be the thing I do. And then I was like, never mind. The Air Force is not what I'm going to do.
That was actually a thing that fascinated me when I first learned it, that apparently there are public schools in the US where,
Yep.
specifically high schools, I should mention, where if you go to lunch, there's just going to be some fucking like Navy recruiter like sitting at the lunch table with like, his hat on backwards, sitting in the chair back and like, hey kids, let's rap about the service. And like trying to convince kids right there in the fucking lunchroom to sign up.
Well, I
like,
joined
didn't
up
know that
originally.
happened.
It was
Well, I
at my high
joined.
school.
I joined
Yeah,
up
but-
because that was like, hey, can you afford college? No. Well, guess what? And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Cal, that's not in every high school by a long shot. They target high schools.
Yeah.
No, I know that they target high schools because the school I went to, our town was the blue collar town surrounded by a bunch of white collar towns.
Mm-hmm.
So if you needed a porch built and you were in one of the many white collar towns that surrounded my town, you would hire people from our town.
Oh man.
So it was a weird thing because it was like we had more money than most blue collar towns, but because we were still a blue collar town, it went to like, we don't think you're gonna go to college, but we have like a special learn to be a mechanic class you can sign up for.
Mm-hmm.
Like this high school was very much like, we're gonna try to prepare you to serve the towns around us. Like,
Badger said Amanda flying a jet scares me. Badger, had I even done that, I wouldn't have been someone flying planes. The track I was on was the like rocket science bullshit. That was the track I was on.
Harry, tell me about school.
Don't.
Yes.
School in general.
Yes, about school.
tell us about your
'Cause
hometown.
all I know about school in the UK is that if it's a public school, it is not a public school. They just call the private schools public schools.
Yeah, and public schools are called state schools here.
Yes.
Ah.
So
I
that's why
remember
you hear about all these public school boys and
The
people
public
say
school
it with
boys.
this sneer. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I remember like realizing here's how I became aware of class. Like the public school kids got picked up from the same bus stop,
Mhm.
and they actually wore really nice uniforms. And on the way on the bus, one of them dropped something, and I picked it up, and it was a copy of Metroid Prime Hunters for the Nintendo DS, which had not been released at the time.
What?
He got a DS early, that little and that's how I knew some people had it better than others.
How the
That's how I learned
fuck?
of suffering.
No, that's how you learn who you need to be friends with.
I did, and I did. I aggressively befriended him. I gave him back his DS card, and for a while I wrote for his Nintendo review website.
You found him, the fabled kid whose uncle works for Nintendo. He's
Yeah.
real. He's like a
Yeah.
cryptid.
I wrote for ngalaxy.com. I got sent
Christ.
one free game, Age of Empires for the DS. I gave it a
Oh,
terrible review, and the company stopped giving us free games.
Oh my god.
and he
You
found
learned
out-
an important lesson that day.
Sorry if
I
I'm
let him
laughing
put- yeah.
loud.
Amanda,
it's okay.
stop. You're fine.
I've been in a mood. I'm aware that I'm loud.
No,
Amanda,
it's cool.
stop.
It's cool. Yeah, it's
That's amazing.
that's-
fucking
that was-
amazing.
it's my life changed that day. Sorry, you were talking about when you're talking about like schools teaching the Bible. And I was reminded, like, who's your favorite Bible character? And mine is there's a character in there called Shamgar who's mentioned like exactly once in the middle of an existing narrative. Like, there's no introduction or conclusion. They suddenly bring up this guy to mention that he killed 600 people with an ox goad, and then they move on.
Yeah.
As one does.
It's in the Lego Bible, I think. Like the when people they recreate
The
bits of the
Brick
Bible with
Testament.
Legos. The Brick Testament. That's it.
Holy
There's like
shit.
there's like Shamgar Brick Testament picture.
I
Oh,
barely
man.
remember the Brick Testament.
I've
Man, that's some early internet shit.
I've absolutely told the story a million times, but Harry's story just reminds me of the dude I sort of, you say you dated, but it's middle school. You're not really dating.
Yeah.
The dude I
Mhm.
dated and then I wanted to break up with, but he gave me and my brothers the Pokemon Stadium adapter. And I was like, oh no, I can't break up with him now because my brothers really like this.
Aw.
Oh.
So I was just like, ah, shit. So I was grudgingly his girlfriend for like 2 weeks because I was just like,
The Pokemon Stadium adapter was more important.
yeah. And my brothers would have been so upset. I was like, God damn it.
We all have to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
you did
also
for
it was like,
family.
he just gave it to me and we were like, what the fuck? How do you have the money to just be giving adapters out to like girls at school? What the fuck, man? And he gave me a necklace too. And I just remember staring at it suspiciously. He's like, how do you have money? It's like I
Don't
couldn't
do
even
this.
like appreciate the present because I was so suspicious of him because like he gave us an expensive video game item and then he gave me a necklace. I'm just like, what the fuck is your deal, dude? It took me years to realize, oh yeah, some people just got money.
Where I grew up, you knew who had money because they had both a Sega Genesis and a Super Nintendo. Not one or the other.
Oh, I
And
was
that's how
always
you-
bitter because we had rules about who could have consoles. Like basically, you could each have one electronic thing, and that was it. So my brothers got some Nintendo. I don't remember which console it was because I wasn't allowed in their room. So
Oh.
this was before we shared things. My
Mhm.
stepsister got the GameCube. I was not allowed anything because I had inherited a very old computer from my mom, and they said, well, that's your electronic thing. That's what you get.
Oh,
Oh.
jeez.
I was very bitter. Was like, but
Um,
I like video game. They're like, no, you have that old ass computer that runs off floppies.
No.
This is so my dad, when it came to, oh, we want the new system or game system, we had a Sega for a very long time, and we never got a new one because my dad, or like whatever the next generation of gaming system was, because my dad would be like, well, the one you have now still works.
Yeah.
And eventually we got a PlayStation because the Sega eventually stopped working.
Mm-hmm.
And then the PlayStation 2 came out. And my dad had the same, well,
Yeah.
the one you have now still works.
Yeah. Shit
Oh
like
God,
that.
I just flashed back.
Then my little brother, quote unquote, accidentally drops the PlayStation down the stairs.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you just made me flash back to when we moved in with my mom, and we used to like we did the thing where if you got a new console, you had to sell the old console. So
Huh.
we were collectively having a child debate. This was when the Xbox 360 was coming out, and I wanted the PlayStation equivalent. My brother was like, "No, we need the Xbox 360 because it has blinks." That was his argument. I was like, we can't make this decision based on one singular game. And he was like, we absolutely can. That cat looks rad as hell.
You can if it's Blinks. That's a great pick.
So we got the Xbox 360 and everyone hated Blinks.
When I was
What?
young, like, okay, so there was this period where there was like the video game crash and everyone thought, oh, you know, whatever, video games are over now, right? And I was very young when that happened. And I had some kids who babysit me, who were the sons and daughters of my parents' best friends. And when they went away to school, they bequeathed me and my brother their Atari 2600. And
Wow.
as a result, I played that was like, I thought that was the funnest shit ever. So I was sitting there at like, 5 or 6 or 7 or however old, playing Atari, and it was only years down the line, because when you're a child, your brain is still soup, you don't absorb anything. And years down the line, I realized while watching a documentary, I was like, oh, I've played that ET game everyone is shitting on. I remember enjoying it a lot, actually. I mean, I didn't understand what was going on, but again, soup brain. So I didn't understand a lot of what was going on around. So it's not like not understanding how to win the ET game was somehow different for me.
It's fun seeing a lot of like really old games that like have to be changed when they're adapted in some way. I'm really on a kick of looking at like the differences between like Resident Evil when they remade them all recently, and like how different they are, and how they like there's becoming one like emergent form of video game, and all the things that we made before are just being thrown away.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah.
I have really,
I
as a
think it's
person,
always interesting.
I was just
Go
saying
ahead.
that, as a person who I love new ideas. I love stuff I've never seen before. When something shows up in the Iron Circus inbox and it's something I've never published, something brand new, I get really excited, and I'm like, oh my God, we have to publish this. This is amazing. Especially when the creator has a lot of confidence in this completely untried and bizarre idea. I'm like, I'm down, let's do it. I am genuinely troubled that we seem to be entering into this cycle where very large media entities seem content to recycle shit forever. And
Yeah.
I think that bodes ill for the future of creativity in general, because large corporations, they don't make art, they make money, period.
Yeah.
That's their job. They have stockholders they are beholden to, and they have bottom lines that make them make decisions that on the surface and from the exterior make no fucking sense. But if you have stockholders to answer to, and the stockholders are hyper-capitalists who expect endless permanent growth, you make those decisions. You kill a movie that's 99.8% finished. You fire 7,000 people, wait 6 months, and then rehire.
Oh yeah, we've talked this into the ground.
Yeah, you've done.
Yeah, we've already talked about this.
I'm getting there. You do a bunch of crazy shit that makes no sense. And one of the cheapest things that you can do, because again, all you fucking care about is the bottom line, is go into the virtual attic, dig around, find some shit, check the chart to see how old current age cohort is. Be like, oh yeah, they're going to remember this. Let's just do this again. And I shrink away in horror from the idea of a future where we are watching the same shit in a 20-year cycle over and over and over. And I'm
Yeah.
really sad because not a lot of other people seem to feel the same way.
I'm gonna be. It's gonna be really upsetting when they do another like, hey, remember the actual Spider-Man 2 everyone likes? Like, there's gonna be another cycle of that now because we perpetuated it into the next one.
Yeah. And it's all fucking coward.
Um,
It's like, did we really need Dead Space to be remade? Did we really need Last of Us to be remastered? Did we really need that? Did we? Like, no, we didn't.
That's the worst thing is like Dead Space being remastered happened faster than the remaster of the game Dead Space is based on. Like the
Yeah.
cycle is going so fast now.
Yeah, and it's all fueled by cowardice and the bottom line, and like, oh god, this feels really bad.
I'm doing a thing
Well-
for my patrons about Myst right now.
Oh wow.
And
oh wow.
one of the really upsetting things about Myst is in the year 2000 they released a 3D version called Real Myst, and it was very cool for the time. And you can't buy it anywhere. They discontinued it everywhere because
Mhm.
because 14 years later they did another version of Real Myst, and then a couple years after that they did another remake of Myst that was this also 3D. So they've just abandoned the original like first time they ever made that kind of game, and it's lost to time unless you physically own it. And you can only even run that version on a modern system if you use like a hack pirates made to run it without a CD decades ago. And like it's the way that the actual things that people care about are getting tossed in the garbage because they can make another thing and it can be new is like really shocking. Like Dead Space 1, still good, still fine.
Yeah.
I hate it.
It bugs the shit out of me again as a person who works with, and forgive like the fucking industry terminology, who works with a lot of emerging artists. It's fucking bleak out there when someone is like 22 and they've got this interesting idea, and they're going to be up against someone walking into a bookstore and they can buy the book that my creator made for their kid, or they can buy the 43rd reissue of Richard Scarry and the 22nd reissue of Dr. Seuss and the 84th reissue of Goodnight Moon. And don't get me wrong, I understand the concept of classics. I understand the concept of certain titles being in perpetual stock and perpetual availability because they're in perpetual demand. But we seem to be shifting into this world where there is now this sort of accepted library of media that we are just going to be subjected to permanently. And I fucking hate it.
It does suck that there's an established canon and that the canon is so rigid. Like what annoys me, like I'm sure everyone's annoyed by in the newspaper when literally everyone every day is like, it's becoming 1984 out there, and it's like, did we read one book?
Yeah.
Did we is that all we have now? I don't know.
Yeah.
It annoys me that we don't. I want to see some like really obscure references,
Okay.
like you like the front page of
tangent-
the next The Guardian should be like, Am is feeding the killing data, people, and like you have to figure that reference out by reading books. Fuck you. Like
Tangent from 1984. Like obviously, as English speakers, we have all heard the term thought police.
Yes.
I recently learned the Japanese equivalent to thought police, if you translate it literally, is the feelings yakuza. That's delightful.
Oh,
That
the
It's
Fifi's
great.
Mafia.
The Fifi Mafia is coming for you.
The feelings yakuza. Because like the pro shipper, anti shipper war that happens in the discourse on social media, like between American fandoms, like spilled into attacking a Japanese fan artist who wrote like a big long post that then got translated, and they were referring to these teens that were attacking them as the feelings yakuza. You're not having the correct feelings, so we're here to stamp them out.
I love the feelings Yakuza because I'm picturing the cast of the Yakuza video game.
Yeah.
Just showing up, cracking their knuckles, looking at you. Are
You
you
felt
being
too many
problematic?
things.
Yeah, you felt too hard. We're here to break your knees.
Have you seen the anecdote that Mark Hamill voiced
Oh,
Majima
yeah.
in the and forgot he did it?
Yeah, I've seen
I
like
think
someone's
it's
like
great.
I remember someone shared like the little interview. It's like, oh, and it's like, oh, I have no memory of that.
Yeah.
Can I
Uh,
ask a general question?
No.
Because there are fucking 34 people watching us right
No.
now, and so that's a decent enough pool. So there's this thing that's been going around, and it makes me cry laugh because I love it so much, but I can't find any info on it, where it's a reference to Morrowind. And it's like the guy in Red Mountain in Morrowind, the big bad in Morrowind, talking about he didn't expect the Nerevarine to be a lizard man. And he's like super racist about it.
Oh,
but accidentally
I saw the
the
Khajiit
entire
version.
time.
No, never
Yeah,
mind. I'm mixing this with something up. Never mind. I'm mixing two things
yeah.
up.
No, but the Khajiit version is also by the same person.
Yeah.
I'm like, where the fuck are these coming from? Because I like watch a lot of animation YouTube, and as a result, I see a lot of people doing animation memes, and one of these memes is like animating like I think it's Vivek or something, like talking about, oh, I don't know, for the last 9 or 10 times you have been a Dunmer. I'm just surprised that you're a lizard. No, there's nothing wrong with being a lizard. It's just not what I expected. Look, this is just making me uncomfortable. Can we just get, no, you aren't making me uncomfortable. This discussion is making me uncomfortable. See, you people always do this. No, not like that. It's just like it goes on like that. And it's fucking hilarious. And I can't figure out where it came from. So if someone wants to tell me, that'd be great. Okay.
So internet memes was making me okay, so last night I went to, and Spike wanted me to talk about this anyway. Last night I went into a lesbian speed dating event.
Yeah.
And my
Amanda!
why this is now relevant. My icebreaker I prepared ahead of time were business cards that have a picture of a famous meme rat that usually is holding a gun, but I put him with an emoji thumbs up instead because I thought a gun was too aggressive. And that's the only thing on the business card. And so basically it's a vibe check where I say, here's my, hi, I'm Amanda, here is my card. And I would rank each girl based on how they reacted to it. And there were my favorite, because it's like, I assume, you know, this is a famous meme rat. Lots of people know this. No, nobody knew this meme rat.
You were too online for all of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were good reactions, but one reaction was, who is this? Like, who is this man? Who is this rat? Is he famous?
That's Charles. That's Charles.
Oh.
That's Steven.
I mean, someone decided to name him Jeffrey and put him in their wallet, so that was nice.
Oh.
No, it was more of a vibe check, like, you know, getting a sense of humor. Like, the one chick was just like laughing so hard she was like crying while she slipped it into her wallet. And then there was the an opposite reaction was this one chick who just kept flipping it over and over and just dryly said, "This isn't a business card." And I'm like, you're correct. It's just a picture I like a lot.
Of a rat. It's just a picture of a rat. Give it a thumbs up. That is an excellent vibe check. Wow.
And then my absolute favorite was this one chick, and we were getting along really well. And you're given these scorecards where you can like score each other, because they then you turn the score cards in, and what they do is they match you up themselves, the organizer, and email you each other's emails later.
If the score's high enough, I assume.
Yeah, if you rank each other highly, basically. Like if you rank someone who doesn't rank you, they don't hook you up.
Right.
So it was really funny. So she was like, "What's the rat thing?" I was like, "Oh, I just really like rats." She goes, "Oh, okay." And then I was like, "Yeah, I have rats." And her eyes got really big, and she said, "Ugh." And then she said, "Was like, I'm so sorry." And she very obviously started to redo my score. I started cry laughing because she was so apologetic about it.
Oh man!
But she just said, "I'm so sorry," and just started rewriting my score.
It's better to find out then, you know.
I didn't mind. I thought it was the fucking funniest thing I'd seen all night, because like she was so apologetic about it. Like, I have to flunk you. I'm so sorry. You're a terrible rat woman.
You have to repeat 4th grade. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You have vermin.
Wow.
Well, then I ranked this one chick really highly. I went with a friend, and we kind of ended up at each other's tables because, you know, you're going to, even though we came together. So we basically were comparing notes. And she was like, "Did you meet the NFT chick?" I'm like, "No, I don't think so." And she was like, "No, her name was blah and her number was blah." And I was like, "Oh, I did meet her. She didn't. I ranked her highly." It's like, "Yeah, no, super into NFTs makes themselves." And I was like, "Oh no." And then I adjusted my scorecard.
Yeah, honestly, I can see the appeal of speed dating events over shit like that. Like, it's better that you find that out in 5 minutes or however long they give you to talk to people, and you just like do a little check on a
You know what
card.
it
You
felt
never have to
like?
worry about it again. What?
It felt like doing conventions.
Oh,
Like every 6 minutes, you have to introduce yourself to another person, try to hit it off, and then they're gone. Bye.
Oh yeah. I did my first con like where I actually had to like do a panel like 2 weeks ago, I think.
Oh yeah, I saw a video of that.
I did a KumaCon stuff. Yeah, it was really fun. And yeah, like when people come up and ask you to sign things, it's super weird. Like you have to like make a friend and then you never see them again briefly. But what was weird was someone who was clearly like an anime voice actor who I should have recognized came up and said he liked my stuff, and I didn't know who he was.
is it
And
someone?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Okay.
It was not someone. It was a person who was probably in something, and I didn't know who they were, and I wasn't sure if they were maybe just an older fan. I don't know, but they were dressed properly, so they clearly were like an adult who wasn't here just. They weren't here to have fun. And I asked like if they wanted me to sign something, and it was like no, and he walked away. And I was like, oh god.
Yeah, the
So
guy in
I'm
the suit at the con is always a little weird.
if I recognize, I'm gonna recognize his voice in something and be like, oh god.
Harry, that reminds me of an SBX story. Our friend of ours, Frank Gibson, used to wear suit jackets every time he went to a convention, and was having dinner before SPX, and this old couple came in and were very, very baffled at the crowd that they saw in the hotel restaurant, and tapped him on the shoulder for what became obvious after the conversation, because he was the only one, quote unquote, dressed like an adult. And they were like, "So we usually come here every year for our anniversary, and it's never this crowded. What is going on?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a comic convention's tomorrow." And they're like, "Oh, that's why everyone's dressed like children." And then just left.
Yeah.
What was the con we did that was also the same weekend as some kind of bridal show? Which was that?
I don't know about that, but I know SPX at least once had their convention the same weekend that the Miss Maryland pageant, was having their like initial testing phase or whatever. And so it looked like how sometimes you see funny photos of a German Shepherd next to like a bulldog or a Chihuahua, and you're like, haha, how are these even the same species? And you had the SPX attendants, and you had all these model-esque in 5-inch heels and long flowing, perfectly coiffed hair women with their makeup just absolutely mwah, on point, and these excellent manicures, and they were just head to toe put together, smelling like Victorian gardens, just delicately dressed and ready to go. And they were next to like these little cave goblin cartoonists.
Excuse me, I always look immaculate. How dare you?
And just like both groups were like looking at each other and doing sort of the wave, and then turning to their organizers going, "What the fuck is going on?"
Okay.
Who
I
are
have
they?
some fun other conventions going on the same time as the comic show. Spike, there was that time we went to Anime Central, and a high school was having prom the same weekend.
Right.
There was also one time I went to WonderCon, and there was a cheerleading competition happening in the same convention center. One time I went to Heroes Con, and there was the Young Republicans convention,
Yeah.
but also a biker convention and also a martial arts competition, all happening in the same convention center.
Mm.
What was that? There was one. I think it was. I think it was a Northwest convention where there happened to be some really nice like cultural art exhibit at the same time that was confusing people because people would ask, "Where is the art show?" And they'd get pointed over to like where the artist alley stuff was, and it was like, this is not culturally important art, please. Where am I supposed to be?
Yeah. But actually, I think a lot of folks here do not know, or maybe they do.
What?
I met Harry at a convention that stopped because it happened like the first one happened like right before the pandemic really, really got its hands around everybody's throats. And I've been sitting there hoping it comes back. And it was called Kala. And
Yeah.
it was like my favorite con ever. It feels like this amazing little secret show that hardly
It's
anyone
great.
knew about. It's so tiny, but it is so concentrated. It's like the consomme of cons. It's really good.
What's that
It's
word mean?
fantastic. Yeah.
Consomme is like a broth that you boil down until it's like a quarter the
Oh,
volume.
that's how you say it.
Yeah.
I've only seen it spelled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was visiting my producer, and she happens to know the person who does Kala.
Wow.
So I got taken there, and
Yeah,
it was great.
very
It was such an out of body experience, being like, she's right there. Oh my god! And you recognized me, which was insane.
Of course I did.
What
That
the
was so weird because, like, I do not expect to see YouTuber at little teeny weeny baby comic convention. You know?
Well, it's my favorite con to have gone to, apart from Akuma Con now, which is also incredible to me.
Yeah,
But
it was
it's,
so fucking
it was
like
so
when I
good. I hope it comes back.
me too. And here's the thing: it's like, love you, Harry. But one of my
Oh.
favorite things about it was
Yeah.
that it happens in LA, and because of it happening in LA, a lot of people who make comics and cartoons in LA come to the show. And
Yeah.
so imagine the show, it's literally, it spans a basketball court. When I say
Yeah.
small, I mean small, smaller than SPX, small. But the people browsing the tables are like the people who made Steven Universe and the people
Yeah.
who made Okay Go Let's Be Heroes, and fucking Matt Groening is
Um,
there. Like those are the people looking at your shit
Speak-
on your
Yeah.
table at Kala.
Yeah, it's great.
Hey, speaking of Harry's producer, I
Mhm.
promised Kat that we would stop
Oh.
at this time. It's time for Harry to go to bed.
Oh, yeah, it's 2 a.m.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Oh
He has
no!
to do tomorrow.
We
Oh, I do
forget
have-
you're on
I-
island time, the bad
Yeah.
kind.
I have one more fun story about Akuma Con though I need to tell though. I need to
Yes,
get
go
off
for
this.
it, and then we'll
So-
send you straight to bed.
Cool. So my friend, I'm trying to remember his name. I'm so tired. My friend Owen, who runs a YouTube channel called The Infinite Review, which everyone should go watch.
Okay.
He got an Airbnb with his friend Sean Cunningham, who runs Studio Mallow, which is a really cool animation company in Ireland. And they got an Airbnb together, and I went and hung out with them one night. And there was in the corner of the living room one of those really like classic IKEA display cabinets where like it has like a glass front, but it's all like metal around the sides, and it was turned to face the wall, so you couldn't see what was in it, and you could tell it had like a bike lock cable keeping it shut, so you couldn't open it. And we sort of leaned against the wall and peeked to see what was in through the glass of the cabinet. That it could have been turned away so people in the Airbnb couldn't see what was in there, and just a bunch of human bones.
I love it.
So we
Excellent.
never learned what that was about.
Oh, I'd love some human bones, but they're so expensive.
Spike.
Next to it was like a big canvas print of a bunch of anime characters, and in the corner was a really badly drawn Goku, just next to this like absurd. It was great.
That's an aesthetic.
Yeah.
Oh god, I would love a skull, but the problem is it's like the thing is there are
Spike?
maybe two
Bedtime.
I just want to say
This is bedtime
there
for
are
Harry.
two ethical ways to source a skull, and I didn't have access to either. And like any skull that you have, you probably should not have if it
Yeah,
belongs
that's
to a
why you
person.
shouldn't have
And
it.
it's like
There are
people like,
millions
no.
of unethical ways to source this stuff.
Like there's my first song. There are a million
7
unethical
billion
ways to
unethical
get
ways.
a skull. Da, da, da. But the thing is, people occasionally go, "Oh well, you can just buy antique skulls." It's like those are easily the least ethical skulls you could buy because they're probably stolen from corpses in graveyards.
I don't understand why skulls are always so expensive. I mean, they're all used.
Exactly.
There's no new skulls.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. And
Thank you.
there we're going to end it before Kel and Amanda fucking. like,
Hey,
yell
I'm
at
just
me.
being considerate. I just know
Harry,
bone
so
talk
much.
can go
Thank you
on
so
a
much for having me
while.
on. It's
Harry,
so
oh
cool.
my
Fulfilling
fucking
my
god!
promise
This,
to Harry's producer,
yes, we promise.
Yeah.
and being responsible.
And we are
Thank-
keeping that
thank you,
promise
Kat.
because it is 2 a.m. there. Harry, thank you so fucking much. So much for coming on. And thank you for being in Failure to Launch. Your story is fucking rad. And make sure that you tell all your followers to come read it because it's a good book. Like, don't get me wrong, your shit's good, but that whole book is fucking good.
I can't wait to read all the other stories.
It's
yeah.
so good. It's like, I obviously, as editor-in-chief, I went through all of them and I'm like, oh, I like wrote Kel, and it's not classy to say, but I was all like, if this doesn't get a fucking Eisner nomination next year, I'm gonna absolutely lose my shit in public because it'll be totally unfair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's because I'm good at my job.
Did I ever say you weren't? God damn. Anyway,
The shade
Yeah.
thrown my
Harry-
way.
I really can't wait to read Ryan North's one. I mean, the art's not great, but
Harry, let's all
what can we
pretend
expect from
all
the guy
these
who did dinosaur comics?
let's
Anyway.
pretend all these people who are here listening don't know where to find you. Where can people find you?
Go to youtube.com/Family Guy free episodes. HBOMBERGUY is cool. Thank you.
HBOMBERGUY, yes. And everybody, please like and subscribe. Iron Circus Comics. Woo! You're soaking in it as we speak. You can find me on Twitter at iron_spike. I draw comics. I do a comic about a monster who is friends with another monster. You can find that on cohost.org. I do a comic that is kind of about Bolshevism, horse cultures, and murder. You can find that on Pillowfort at blacata.com. I am also on Hive and Spoutable. I'm everywhere at Iron Spike, all one word, except for Twitter, where I'm iron_spike. You can follow Iron Circus on Instagram at Iron Circus. You can follow Iron Circus on Facebook at Iron Circus Comics. And you can follow Iron Circus on Twitter at Iron Circus Comics, comics spelled COMIX, because that's the only way it would fit. Please back Failure to Launch on BackerKit. We're real proud of it.
You can find all of my comics at kelmcdonald.com. I also usually stream at twitch.tv/kelmcdonald. This Saturday, I'm going to do a live reading of one of my comics and answer listening questions. We'll see how that goes, depending on my voice. That's going to be at noon Pacific Standard Time this Saturday. So you should stop by and give a listen there. Harry, before you go, since you've read Sorcery 101, you should send me a reader question that I can answer on air.
Cal, marketing.
Yeah.
Message me about that. I'll do that. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna fall asleep. Thank you so much. Have a
Oh,
great
Amanda,
night.
Amanda needs to
morning.
go first.
It doesn't
Amanda needs to-
matter.
Oh shit! No, go on, do it, go.
My link is in the description. That's what I say every time. It's fine.
God, I hate you. Okay, Harry, you were saying.
I'm gonna go to sleep.
Good
Okay, good night, Harry.
Okay,
Sleep
good night.
tight.
End of the
Good
stream
you.
now.
Good night,
Goodbye.
everybody. Thank you so much.